there are so many lessons, I think, from the local search or the yellow story across the whole world. Some of them are very similar, some of them are unique, but I kind of tell my friends the story. I sort of think I've been in 4 chapters, and the first chapter, when I joined the business in the early 90s, was very much around, people in Australia used to refer to the Yellow Pages industry as rivers of gold. It was Pacific Access back then, and we had double trunk books and full page, double full page ads. And, can I tell you, we were the Romans, if it was an empire, we were the Romans. And then, in the late 90s, we started to see, back then we called it, and you remember this, the .com boom. It wasn't even digital, it was .com. And then we started to see the emergence of the IYP platform and certain platforms that were still fundamentally directories, but online, right? So we sort of went from this fully fledged print era, rivers of gold, into this .com, where we started to see the platform starting to move online. And I guess there wasn't a lot of transformation to that. Most of the transformation in that early era was more around, still centered around the brand. The yellow brand was very powerful. The walking fingers was centered around product design, distribution, networks, and what have you. But then as we started to move to .com, we started to see a little bit more. That's when the word agile was kind of born. And I actually think everyone started then thinking, well, we've got to transform this industry. And then, then the digital era came along in the mid 2000s and what have you. And, and where we're at today. And then that industry, which was once the rivers of gold, had to pivot and had to be agile. But what I saw in my career, in the early days, we saw, print restructuring, distribution restructuring. We actually saw, the books in every marketplace, 3 columns, 4 columns, 5 columns. And then as the online era started to come about, we actually started to see print decline, which it did. And, we started to see online take over and then digital. And then we had to pivot. If you think about the workforces we had, when I joined the Pacific Access, which was the Telstra incumbent business in Australia, we had 5,000 employees, 2,500 of which were field salespeople, people in the market. What a dominant opportunity. We had to transform that over time. The mix is different today. There's a much greater orientation from a selling perspective through servicing, through call centers, but also through servicing through marketing automation and what have you. So we had to restructure that. We had to restructure the fixed costs in the industry. So I think about the fixed costs we had. When I joined, one of the greatest assets was the 400 artists that we had. We used to bring these artists out to the customers, and they design an ad, and that was like, wow, but the reality is you've got AI and automation and robotics that does all of that for you now. You can build a website in probably 15 minutes without talking to anybody, right? So the industry had to pivot around that. Then we saw the agility and the transformation of telcos jumping off, and then the industry setting up in its own right. We saw lots of different variations of that. We saw transformations with printing, packaging, and distribution, the way we went to market. And then in the last era, which I've got to say I enjoyed the most, the last sort of 6 years of my career in the industry was in private equity. And transformation became a, how do we change the wheels on the car as we're driving it, right? It was no longer this sort of 12-month program of work, Charles. It was, how do you get a program up and get your reps mobile or drive efficiency and what have you in 4 to 6 weeks, not 4 to 6 months? And how do you do that without having big capital business cases? And how do you simplify systems? So, I think about the legacy systems we had when we started and the systems that we've got today. In Australia, we moved to Salesforce.com, but there's any one of thousands that people have gone to, SAP and what have you. But, we had to undergo those transformations. I think the reality now is how does the industry transform to serve the 5, 6, 7,000 platforms that exist, that small business have to have a relationship with some of them, all of them, but small business has to do their job, right? So it's transformation's changed. It would have been circa 1999, and Pacific Access, which was the incumbent, 100% owned by Telstra, the incumbent directory services business, set up a a pilot group. I was actually a part of this pilot group. I think there was about 30 of us operating out of a different office, and, back corner somewhere. And our mandate was, because the .com boom was on its way, online had come about, was to go and see whether we could create an online business, vertical business. And we came back with the recommendation that we thought there was an opportunity to have a vertical business in the real estate, the property domain. We thought there was an opportunity to have a vertical business in the automotive domain, being selling cars and what have you. We thought there was a vertical opportunity in property services and what have you. And then we thought there was another one in health and I remember like it was yesterday, and I'm no spring chicken anymore, Charles. I remember like it was yesterday, presenting to the CEO of the Telstra of that day. And I remember him looking at us and saying, who's going to go to a computer to actually want to buy a house or research a house? You guys must be. And can I tell you, we shelved that. We sold a couple of the concepts off, and this would be the same worldwide. I'm sure this thinking would have gone on, but in Australia, we sold those concepts off, or we gave them away for next to nothing, shut the projects down, and we doubled down as a consequence in the early 2000s on the print again. We went back and we introduced double page ads instead of going for the online verticals. And I think that was a poignant moment. We probably, and I understand it. We were protecting the EBITDA of the day as opposed to laying the seeds or planting the seeds of the future. I mean, another moment was in the mid, sort of 2010, 11, when we started pivoting, to new technologies and new platforms and what have you. We probably could have made that move retrospectively a lot earlier, and that would have allowed us to take, SaaS opportunities in the future to market ourselves. But again, it became around what was the priority of the day, and EBITDA was. I think, look, if you look at Google and Facebook today, they really dominate the industry that we once owned, right? They probably have 60+% of that industry. I often reflect and think, hey, what if the Yellow Pages industry as a worldwide body was able to actually band together? And we've operated really well as peers, and we've been incredibly generous in terms of sharing. But I've got amazingly great friends across the globe who are from an industry I'm really proud of. But we probably didn't work together to actually take that on, to explore the possibilities. And, and because we all stayed so isolated in our own domains, our own markets, we didn't get the benefits of scale, of a global scale that we could have had. I mean, it's interesting. We ended up all adapting our game to serve their model, and we still do to a certain degree today. So we've become, servants to that play, right? I mean, if you think about just the simplicity of a co-op, the Yellow Pages groups around the world, I mean, for each of them to have put in, some sort of funding for a co-op, a fund that wasn't about protecting the great business we had, but it was around future facing, looking for a new horizon. I think it's really, I mean, the moves now are limited. I think the SaaS movement is the right movement for the industry. I mean, I think, if I look at it from my perspective, and the customer that we're all serving in this domain is small business, SMBs, and their needs haven't really changed, right? I mean, what's changed is they're not looking for us to sell them a Yellow Pages solution for anymore, but they're still looking for us to help them solve the fact that they're time poor. They're looking for us to help them make their business more efficient. They're looking for us to help them drive leads. They're looking for us to help them with invoicing or quoting and what have you. So I think this movement towards a SaaS play is the right one. It's definitely a complete leap and a complete shift for the business. But I think in order to stay relevant for small business, I mean, we're seeing it through COVID now. Those small businesses that pivoted early to some form of SaaS are probably going to weather the storm and be fruitful on the other side. So to answer your question, I think it is the right play. I think the small digital marketing agency model is challenged in its own right. I think it works okay at a bespoke, hyper-local level, but to take that with scale, again, Google and Facebook, 60% of the market, I think it's going to be challenged. Many around me would probably say I have a bias here, but I think if you look at the benefit in its heyday that Yellow brought to small business was that scale to market, the fact that we had, we used to talk about feet in the street, but what did that equated to? Having members of our team servicing small business to help them grow their business. Yeah, okay, it was a bilateral arrangement, but I think it's been to the detriment for sure. I mean, if, a lot of my family run their own businesses, who's an accountant, and who's a builder and what have you. And let me tell you, the one thing they don't have is time. And the other thing they don't know who to turn to. Who's running one accounting software and then running 6 or 7 different softwares for efficiency, and then talking to 30 different people for leads. So I think that the small business community needs that, that central form of trust. And I think that's a pivot opportunity for the industry, right? And I loved your notion before. I think the industry, if they could pivot off the back of service, and it's different. I'm not talking about reps in the field or what have you, because service is a combination of AI, marketing automation. It's a combination of call centers who are able to solve a problem at a right point in time. But if they could pivot with some proprietary SaaS software to solve some of those needs, I think they'd be going a long way to cornering a component of the market. And I think the Thrive model, the Sensis model, is very much SaaS driven, and it's the right model for those business and those markets. I mean, I really like what Thrive are doing in terms of really trying to transform the industry. I think it is the right play. That said, I think there's still an opportunity for boutique or bespoke vertical plays that still really, is never going to have the mass appeal, but I think it actually could build great trust at an SMB level. I mean, we've seen it here in Australia, you've seen it around the world in trades and services verticals, in health verticals, But I think the incumbent or the player that can actually take a combination of your own core value, your own proprietary set, and wrap that around, someone who can actually help aggregate, whether it be at a vertical level, all the noise, right? All the different apps and platforms and what have you, and just make it easier, wrap that together through the service channels that they take. They'll be the ones that win. I mean, I think I hope I'm around in 50 or 60 years to see it play out. I think